Hello, everybody. Welcome to this little broadcast. This is going to be an update on various things happening in the world. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Russia, Ukraine, also Uvalde, the Queen's Jubilee, and I think I'll touch on a Trump Boris Johnson kind of thing as well. What I think I'll start off with, however, is to talk about Ukraine, because now it seems that as it's emerging in the mainstream media that things really aren't going that well and that Putin has achieved his objectives, people are getting to backtrack and throw each other under the bus. So we have Biden coming out and saying that he warned Zelensky that Putin was building up troops and he didn't heed the warning, and Biden claims that he told Zelensky that he should back off his aims to join NATO. Zelensky, however, is saying that he was misled. He was saying that in public, the European Union and other powers were acting very eager to welcome Ukraine into NATO and the EU, but in private, he had been told that these two things were an absolute no-no. And he's accusing the West of cowardice by having what Hillary called one thing for the public and one thing for private. It wasn't exactly what she said, but she implied. And you see, this whole thing is unraveling. So what we knew all along is this conflict was really just engineered so that there'd be an excuse for the food shortages, the global economic collapse, and a mixing around of economic power and geopolitical power. In terms of geopolitical power, I just want to come to this little article here and to mention something that's called the Geographical Pivot of History. And it was an article submitted by Halford John Mackinder from the Royal Geographic Society. I've mentioned this Lord Halford before. He was a member of the Council of 300. He spoke about the strategic importance of Eastern Europe. He said, "Who rules Eastern Europe commands the heartland. Who rules the heartland," which is basically the whole Russia stroke Chinese stroke subcontinent, all that included, right? That's the heartland. And who rules the heartland commands the world island. Who rules the world island commands the world. The world island is basically, as you can see here in this map, it's the whole area of Russia, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, subcontinent of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and going over to China. So you see, Ukraine is at the heart of this Eastern European mass that they want to have control of. And the Council of 300, this is going back almost 115 years ago though, but they believed that that was central to being able to control the world. I've often talked about this, but it actually has a name. So he talked about the Russian Empire being huge, but socially, politically, and technologically backward as of that particular time. And he talked about the great game that Britain and France should engage in to prevent Russian expansion. I think that was what the whole Crimean War back in the day was about, and why the British and French teamed up with the Ottoman Empire. They were always trying to keep Russian power down, because they knew that if Russia claims that area, of which is its natural area, they could have dominance over the whole world. Yes, and he said successful invasion of Russia by a Western European nation, notably Germany, would could be very crucial. That was obviously 100 whatever years ago. And he said the introduction of railroads would be crucial. So what he goes on to talk about as well, I just want to get to that part there, is he said that Britain had this traditional sea power, and that's how it projected in its empire, via its sea power. But he said the sea power would become a weakness as land transport improved. And he said land transport, like railways, roads, and whatever, would open up the potential of the heartland coming into Eastern Europe for development and to become a powerful era of control. So a modern development to which the heartland theory can still be attributed to exist is through Russia's oil pipelines and the various things that have gone on there. And I would say Belt and Road. So China have obviously latched onto this theory, and they realized that the key, well, they have the sea power as well, but the key are all these railroads and the roads going through this area and developing important political ties with all the countries in the subcontinent and the Arab world and the Middle East, etc. and then expanding into Eastern Europe. So maybe this Victoria Nuland and all that, they were trying to get control over that Ukraine area so that their branch of the cabal can kind of control world affairs, because this thesis of Halford still seems to ring true, and it's still something on which they base their geopolitical strategy. So you can see why Ukraine is so important. It's part of this whole Eastern European heartland area, which can link into the Belt and Road. Just to mention, the first person Trump fired when he got into the White House was Victoria Nuland, and we know she's one of the first people Biden brought back. A lot of people are saying that if Hillary had got on, this whole Russia conflict could have come around much, much earlier, so we might have been in this in 2016. But because there was this delay before they got Trump out, maybe Russia and China had become a lot stronger, had buffeted themselves against sanctions, particularly in Russia's case, had got other sort of economic and financial systems going. Therefore, they've been able to be a whole lot more effective. So they might have been late to the game on this one. There you can see my story there. That's basically what InfoWars was saying, similar to what I said. The West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path, and the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. So the Western world, through their media propaganda war against Russia, through arming Ukraine and egging them on, actually contributing to the destruction of that country, when by pushing diplomacy from the start they could have done a lot more to save lives on both sides, on all sides, and on all civilian sides as well. Just wanted to talk about Uvalde. Now obviously the go-to point is, it's all about gun control, and it definitely is. It's another incident whereby they can push the gun control narrative, but another very important narrative is being pushed, and it's being pushed by both sides, because what people on the right and left were saying is, the police were incompetent. Why didn't the police go in? Why did the police hang around so much outside? Why did they waste 75 or more minutes? Why weren't they in the school? Why weren't they tackling the shooter? Why were parents being stopped going in? And the reason is they want to delegitimize and demonize the police so they can bring in a nationalized police. Now, I believe both Obama, Trump, and Biden are all very keen on a nationalized police on the model of Israel. And I think, what's really a nationalized police? Well, I suppose it's getting rid of sheriff and your local police and the local police who are very involved in the community. But it could also mean a militarized police, which could be a very worrying development. So that was the dual purpose behind Uvalde. It's not just about the police, it's about getting in a militarized, I'm calling it a militarized, they saying more nationalized police force as well. Next thing I want to talk about, I'm just looking to find notes here, the Queen. Is the Queen patriotic? And I'm thinking, the Queen's parentage is from the Saxe-Coburgs, which were basically German going back in time. Her husband, Prince Philip, was half Danish, half Greek. Royal family or royal families are by the very nature of them pan-European. In fact, I think the Queen's grandfather was first cousin to the Tsar, so they're all closely connected. So the royal families were like the original EU. So are they patriotic to their individual countries, or do they see their individual countries as just franchises in terms of the traditional control they had? And I'm thinking, we like to project. It's almost like people project emotions onto their pets or whatever. We project our emotions onto these politicians, and the Queen in particular. But she's living such a rarefied, unique existence. Can we really project our patriotism onto her and believe that she feels the same way, when her whole life experience is probably not being conducive to that at all? And we could say the same for politicians. So I think in terms of the elite, the politicians, the ultra-wealthy, the Queen, they are not patriotic because they are not tied to one country, and therefore they don't have this emotional involvement that we do, and we shouldn't project it onto them. I think it was quite interesting what Peter Hitchens said, is that the Queen has failed dismally in her role to defend the faith. In terms of Protestantism, has gone absolutely downhill. Justin Welby is just a spokesman for the woke agenda in the New World Order. We've seen all the kind of LGBT agenda being pushed and whatever. She certainly, he said, has totally failed abysmally in protecting the faith. The other thing is the royal family have become very, very political. They're meant to be apolitical. You see in the news today, Charles is interfering in the whole immigration thing. But in general, they're pushing the green agenda, which is the most politically defining political thing of our time. Right? The green agenda is what's going to transform the way we live, the choices we make in life, the freedoms we have. everything, and they heavily involved William, Charles, the whole lot, not so much the Queen, she's too old, but, they're all heavily involved in the green agenda. They are now political. They embedded with the World Economic Forum, so we cannot see them in the same way. And look at the people they choose to keep company with. It's not only Seville and Epstein and Maxwell and that. It's the people like the Clintons. It's that whole woke, neoliberal, globalist cabal that they feel most comfortable with, that they associate with, which puts them on the opposite side of what a lot of us are looking for and a lot of us want. So they continue to make up stories. Oh, Putin's unwell. He's got 3 months to live. He's got dementia. He's got Parkinson's. He's got cancer. He's got whatever's going, right? Except COVID. He's got everything. And I'm thinking, sources. Well, one of their sources was Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele, who's been thoroughly debunked as any kind of credible expert in terms of the Russia dossier on Trump. He compiled the Russia dossier to demonize Trump on behalf of the Clintons. He has no credibility, and this is their go-to source on Putin's health. Or they had unnamed sources, which basically means they made it up. More garbage. And I ask you, Putin's so ill, but Biden apparently is fit and healthy and is going to run in 2024. Yeah, we really want to be believing this. Didn't raise a question in my mind. How many politicians get cancer? Not many. I'm thinking that Tessa Jowell from the Labour Party had a brain tumour, and I know there was a former Secretary of Northern Ireland, Maureen, I can't remember her other name, who died of cancer. But it's very rare. And I mean, you look at like Jerry Nadler, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, and Schumer. They're very old, generally, in the American Congress, and yet you very rarely hear of any politician anywhere dying of cancer or even getting cancer, don't you? So it would be quite unusual if Putin was suffering from such a thing. So there we go. I'm just having a look to see if there was any other things that we should talk about. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to introduce a few of those topics. No particular predictions right now. I will be back with some of those, but bogged down in other things right now. But I hope you enjoyed this little recording, just to give you my perspective on some of the things going on at the moment. So we've covered like the recently, the Queen, the Jubilee and all that. And Zelensky, and I actually think their narratives are falling apart on so many different levels, and I think they're getting kind of desperate. So it'll be very interesting to see what they're going to push next. By the way, Amazing Polly did a really good thing on monkeypox. Do check that out. It's on Band.video and her channel. There's 2 different ones you need to watch. The most recent one and the previous one, which is a little bit longer. So do have a check out of those, guys. You will enjoy them. Quite investigative. A little bit of Inspector Clouseau going on there, as Polly does do quite well. Thank you.